I'm Luke Melke, helping you master the art of filmmaking. Today we're talking about... You might have a great idea for a film you want to put together, but you don't know how to get started. So that's what we're going to talk about today with pre-production planning. The first thing you need to do when you're putting together a film is write a script. I know writing a script might seem like it's kind of obvious that you should have a script when you're putting together a film, but there are some people who just want to jump into it too quickly. So you want to make sure when you write your film, you're writing something you're passionate about. I have a video about that previously that you should check it out. If you don't know how to write a short film script, check out the video. You want to make sure you invest the time into creating production as well. Don't just write a single version of the script and assume that's good enough. You want to really focus on rewrites and reworking it and make sure someone else looks at the script and says, oh, this is really working for me, this is not. Because sometimes we get into our own little bubble, our own little world, and we just understand what's happening. We know what the characters were already thinking, what they're doing. We've already done some of the rewriting, so we know what used to be there. And when we take that out, we already know, but some fresh eyes, someone else might not know all that. So if they look at it like, this doesn't make sense, and to us, we're like, well, it makes total sense that, well, it's no longer there. So it might not make sense. So have other people look at it. That's very, very important. Building a budget. I know that can be a lot of fun. Sarcasm there. That's not usually the thing that a filmmaker really wants to do a lot of work with, but it's very important when you're creating a film. So you want to make sure you have a budget put together and make sure you put your budget, what is your limit for your budget together first. Don't be like, oh, we're going to put all these things together, then find out at the end like, oh my, I can't afford a $3.4 million film. Most of us can't. You want to put together what is your budget limit first. And once you put your limit of this is how much money I'm going to spend on this production, then you start working out where you want to put that money into your film. So typically the order I put it together is I decide how much can I actually pay my actors for this. It doesn't necessarily mean all of my actors have to be paid. Some of it can be volunteers, some can be just they want to get experience, or it's a small role, they just want to be in it because they're friends. But you want to really make sure how much money you can afford into actors, because without good actors, you can't have a really good film. You also then want to look at how much can you put into your crew. That is one area, well, yeah, sometimes you can have people just be friends and help volunteer and something like that, but you got to make sure they know what they're doing, because if a crew doesn't know what they're doing, it could cost you a lot more in the long run because cameras getting broken, things like that, kind of expensive. So try to avoid that kind of thing. So try to get someone who actually knows what they're doing. Doesn't mean that they can't be friends, but make sure you're getting friends that actually know what they're doing. Don't be like, hey, you want to run a camera? Sure, I've never done it before. This would be great. That's probably not the best route to go. Another thing you want to put into your film is what can you afford as far as equipment. This is one of those things that you don't have to have a lot of equipment to make a good film. It can make it easier, yeah. But you can do it on your cell phone a lot of times now. They have amazing cameras built into those. So you don't have to have great equipment. You can have rather cheap lighting. The lighting I'm using for here is actually like a $30 light setup. It's not perfect. It's not as good as if I put together a couple $1,000 light setup. But it's good for what I'm doing right now. I don't have to have the big guns. So also think about that when you're putting together your budget for your equipment. What is it that you can afford there? The next thing you need to worry about when putting together your budget is what can I cut out of my budget? More than likely you created the perfect crew, you created the perfect acting cast, but then you find out you probably can't afford that once you added everything up, which is kind of a problem. So then go back and figure out where can you play with some of the numbers, take some expenses away, to make it so it actually can fit within the budget that you set initially. That's why you want to set a budget when you start. That way you don't have to worry about having this huge number at the end and just like, well, I'm going to have to figure it out. This is what I have to. No, set your budget, then figure out how everything can fit into there as well. Another thing you really want to make sure you do is keep track of your expenses once you've actually had the expenses. You create your budget and then keep track and see if you've actually gone over budget or under budget. So you need to keep track of receipts and copies of checks, things like that, if you've paid your crew, if you've done something like that. So you want to make sure you keep a list of all that stuff to track and see if you actually kept under budget or not. That'll also help you when you're creating your next production. If you know, oh, I thought it was going to cost this much, but it actually cost this much, it'll help you build the budget better in the next time you create a film. The next thing is the prop list. This is something I actually really enjoy putting together because you can build so much of your characters through the props that they have. This is also something I will sometimes give to someone else. I have crew that help me on a lot of my sets and things like that, and this is one that's really hard for me to give up, and sometimes I do, but you really want to make sure you have a prop list and be involved in it, even if you're not doing it yourself. That way you can know for sure you're helping build the characters that you really want to build through your props, because a lot of your characterization comes out through your props. When they have a certain kind of boots, they have a certain kind of gun, or they have a certain whatever it is, it helps the character actually build who they are. Building a shooting schedule. This is one that can be fun but really challenging at the same time, because most films are not shot from scene 1 all the way to the ending scene in order. That almost never happens. You usually shoot scene 2, scene 4, scene 7, scene 1, scene 6, and you just kind of jump around what maybe seems like at random, but a good planning makes it so it's very efficient. You know, we're going to shoot all the locations that are here. If we're all set up, we have a day's worth of setup in this one location, we're going to stick in that one place until we shot everything we need there. But you also have to balance, when are your actors around? Because an actor doesn't want to come in for week 1 and then come in for week 3 or week 4 of shooting, and they have 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks where they're not doing anything. That's really not fair to your actor, and usually if something like that happens, they're going to charge you for that additional time. So you want to try to line up and schedule so you have as little dead time for everybody as possible. So you want to make sure you put together an efficient shooting schedule to make sure it's efficient as far as equipment, crew, and with your actors. Location scouting. This is one of my favorite things to do because I have these huge dreams of what it is I want to produce. I go online, I look at a lot of pictures, this is kind of what I'm looking for, and then I go out and actually start seeing what in the area actually has some of these things we're looking for. And sometimes you find what you're looking for, and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you find what you're looking for, but realize you can't afford it. There's one film I was putting together, and I knew exactly what I wanted. I went to the location, I wanted to do it, and it was going to cost several $1,000s more than I was able to put into the budget. So I had to figure out a plan B, and I had to add some special effects to make that location look and act the way I wanted it to, which, looking back at it, knowing what I know now, it might have been better to use the couple extra $1,000s and save the time in post-production with green screening windows and all that stuff. But that's something you want to make sure you look through, is all the different angles. What is the balance between cost and extra work at the end? Is it going to cost a little bit more money, but is it going to save me a lot of time? Then it might be better to actually spend a little extra money on that location. Shot list. Some people find this a daunting task. This is something I actually find a lot of fun. It is quite tedious, but when you put it together just right, it can just be so much fun. So what you need to do when you create a shot list is you go through and you label what each line, what camera angle should be with what. If it's going to be a close-up, which is labeled as a CU, extreme close-up, XCU, because you don't have to write this all out the whole time. It's just an easy, quick shorthand. There's a long shot, which is the wide establishing type of shots. And each of these shots give different mood and characters and characteristics, and they reveal what the audience should know at that time. So that's why I find it a lot of fun as the director coming in and, oh, this is what I want the audience to be thinking. This is what the audience to be feeling right now. And I can really build that whole scene. This is often the job of the director of photography, but in smaller productions, a lot of times it's the director, and I actually prefer doing that. In bigger productions, sometimes the director actually works together with the director of photography to make sure that everything syncs and matches up with the vision there. The next thing you want to make sure you list in your shot list is what lens is going to be used. Because a 16 versus an 85 versus the 50, they're all going to have a different feel. You want to make sure when you put your shot list together that you are efficient in your shot list, so you're not continually swapping out lenses, because that can be really annoying for the crew. It can really slow things down. So you want to put in order. I'm going to put all the maybe over the shoulder shots from character A to character B, and then we're going to switch to do all the other over the shoulder shots. So you don't even shoot your scene in sequential order. Typically you shoot it out of order, and then you have to piece all the things together in post to make it look and feel like it was all shot at one time, which typically it's not. Another thing you want to put in your shot list is the shot going to be handheld, Is it going to be a gimbal? Is it going to be a crane? Is it going to be a sticks, which is tripod? Because that makes a big difference as well for setting up equipment. You can have an assistant there ready with all the extra equipment that you might need between shots. If they know what's coming next, they can have it prepared, and that will really help things run smoothly. And the smoother and faster things go, the easier it is on the actors to stay in the mood, in the moment. Because if we have to go yell cut, and then it takes 15-20 minutes to reset up something, they kind of lose some of that mood, some of the energy, especially not as trained actors. They're going to lose some of the energy, and it's going to feel awkward between cuts because they're going to be right on character, then they won't be on character, and they will be, and it'll bounce back and forth, and that's going to be really odd. So you want to make sure you keep things very efficient that way. Something I use when putting together my shot list is an app called Shot Lister. This has a lot of options, including the ones we already mentioned, but it has several other ones as far as like how long you think each shot's going to take, so you can schedule it all out that way. You can reorganize all the shots there. It'll also tell you if you're on track. You say, okay, at this time we should be on this shot, and then it knows what shot you're on at what time. If you're not on track, it lets you know, and that way you can figure out, oh, what shots should we adjust, what should we change here to make sure we get back on track and we finish on schedule. Another thing you want to put together is where are the cameras going to be, where are they going to sit compared to the actors, where should the actors be moving. All these things are very, very important to be thinking through. Here's a shot of a scene that I put together and just tried mapping out where the camera is going to be, how the actor is going to move. This way I could show it to the crew, the actors, that, hey, this is what's going to happen. I wouldn't have to go on set and necessarily try and explain it all on set. They could see it from a bird's eye view and instantly know this is kind of what I'm doing. And that makes things go a lot faster. Once again, the faster you can make things on set, the better. So put the extra work into it in prep, in the pre-production. It'll make the production and post-production go so much faster. Now you want to put together an equipment list. This can also be a lot of fun as well, but it can sometimes be very difficult when you know what your budget is a lot smaller than probably what you actually want to do. So try to figure out what equipment can actually fit into that budget that you already created. Once again, you don't have to have the nicest cameras and you have the nicest lights anymore, but you want to make sure you put together the list of equipment that you need at each location as well. So we know what days you need what. If you have to rent any equipment, what has to be rented what days, and try to put that as short as possible when you put together your shooting schedule. And then you want to kind of meld all those things together. All these different things we've been talking about now, you need to flex and come back to them and rework them all to kind of mesh and meld together, so you don't have to be at the end like, oh no, I put the shot list together and it doesn't work with these lenses I have for that day. Or if you put together a shooting schedule and realize you have the equipment you need in weeks 1 and 3, and then you have week 2 that you don't have it, and you try to figure out the best way to, you could actually put that to back-to-back weeks and save you money on renting that way as well. So you need to keep going back to those things all the way up until production actually starts, just to make sure everything melds together. Building a crew. This can be one of those difficult things on a low-budget production because you want to make sure someone's on your crew that's not going to break equipment, that can get the good shots you need, and not have those awkward shaky shots or the shots of the feet when you're really trying to get the shots of the head. You really need to make sure someone who knows what they're doing visually. They have to be an artist as well. So different positions have different requirements. And I'm going to put a list in the comment here where you're able to actually see what is it that each character or each position needs as far as skill sets. Help you kind of figure out, oh, I have a friend that's good in these areas, they can fit into this pretty well. I've got friends who are good in this area, they can fit in this well. And you can find out where you can actually get your friends and those who probably aren't going to charge you much. You might be able to get them for free and really put together a strong crew without having to worry about, oh, are they going to be able to do what I need them to do? One thing I really, really emphasize is don't be cheap. There's a big difference between not spending a lot of money and being cheap. If you're having crew and actors that you're not paying them to work with you, you need to be able to cover their expenses. It shouldn't cost them to work with you. That can be paying for the gas, paying for their meals, paying for the snacks, whatever it is. You want to be a easy person to work with and not someone that's a burden to work with, because they're already giving you their time. You really need to be able to give back to them and make it so it's not as much of a burden for them. And then they're more likely to work with you again as well. It's a lot cheaper to buy someone a meal than it is to hire somebody because the person you had for free quit and doesn't want to work with you again. You want to make sure when you do hire somebody that you pay them respectable amounts. Industry standards a lot of times between $40 and $120 an hour for different positions. It can sometimes be more than that, sometimes less, but that's kind of a typical range that a lot of people will be charging. Now, you don't have to pay someone that is either free or $40 an hour, but that gives you an idea. This is what they are worth if they're putting the money and their effort and their time and their career into producing films. It takes a lot of time to get to the level of skill level that they're at. It takes money to get the equipment that they have, so they have to charge these type of things. So you want to work with the people that you pay them respectable. It doesn't always have to be the industry standard. Make sure they know what they're going to get paid beforehand as well. Don't be like, oh, by the way, I'm only going to pay you $10 an hour after they did the shooting. That's not a good idea. You want to make sure you have agreements and all that stuff worked out in advance. But when you don't hire at the traditional rates, don't expect to get the best quality either. So you're going to have to expect to get some of the lesser quality because you paid less money. That's just kind of the way it works. You get what you pay for. Another thing you want to work on is creating a cast list. So you got to make sure you list down what each actors are, their characters that you have in your script, and then what you need for each of those with a character breakdown. There's another link in the description below with the character breakdown. Just kind of show what I've used for something like that. So you're able to see this is what this character needs. You can fill it out. So when you go and have a tryouts, or just if you have a smaller production and you don't have the luxury of a tryout, you just have to pick people. Hey, will you do this part? You know what you're looking for. You can fill it out like, oh yes, this person fits. Because if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you're not going to know when you find it. There are times though when you have exactly what you want and some character comes along and they portray it and you're like, wow, that was not what I was expecting, but it was incredible. That does happen occasionally. So don't be locked down too tight to this is exactly what they need to be, unless it is very, very critical to the script. There's times I've heard where they'll be casting for a male part and a female comes in and they're like, I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll let her do it. And it comes out amazing. And they actually rework the script. Work hard. It is incredibly important for you to be working as hard as you can through the entire production of the film, whether it's pre-production, production, and post-production. On these small budget films, a lot of the people aren't getting paid much or paid at all. So you need to be working as hard as you can, showing you're the example of, hey, I'm not just bumming off you guys. You need to make sure you pick up the slack. You need to be working your butt off through the whole time, because you don't want others to be looking at you going, oh, if he's not giving this hard, I'm not going to work as hard either. You need to be setting an example. You need to be working your butt off through the entire production. There's a reason when I was little, they used to call me Mr. Little No Butt. I think that might have also been because I was 10 and just was very, very skinny. But that's beside the point. You need to make sure you work your butt off. If you like this video, please comment, like, share, subscribe. If you didn't like this video, but you at least found my voice soothing,
then go ahead and listen to this wonderful music as you put yourself to sleep.
I'm Luke Melke, helping you master the art of filmmaking.